Hello. This presentation covers the downtown planning public workshops that are being held in person March 12th through the 14th. This presentation provides an overview of the different planning projects that are going to be discussed during those workshops, and will also provide instructions with how you can engage with these planning projects virtually. So these workshops are really covering three different plans with a focus on the downtown. This includes the Ann Arbor Citywide Comprehensive Plan, the Downtown Area Circulation Study, and the DDA Development Plan. And these workshops will focus on the downtown, and they're really about building a shared knowledge about the conditions and the workings of the city and the downtown area, and as an opportunity to discuss ideas, understand your vision for the future of the city and what you would like to see, and provide input on a range of ideas that are being presented through these workshops. So the process today, this presentation provides a brief overview of the different projects. It will also include some instructions on the end for how you can participate virtually if you're not able to attend one of the in-person workshops, and how we can collect your feedback and comments through a survey. So one of the important things that we wanted to mention at the start is the importance of values in our discussions about the future of the city and the future of the downtown. So all of these three planning processes, the comprehensive plan, the DDA's development plan, and the circulation study, are all informed by sets of values that have a lot of overlap and synergy between them. So thinking about issues related to affordability, equity, sustainability, safety, mobility. These are some of the key values that are informing our decisions and will be part of our process moving forward. So let's look first at the Ann Arbor Comprehensive Plan and talk a bit about this planning process, what its outcomes are, what its goals are, and where we are in the process. So what is a comprehensive plan? Ultimately, the comprehensive plan is a document that is adopted by City Council that lays out a vision for the future of the city. It addresses priorities from both a funding and a project standpoint, helps guide developments. It sets the stage for zoning changes and updates to zoning codes that affect how the city develops and grows. And we're really looking at a 20 to 30-year time horizon out to 2050. And there were three key elements that were part of the process that the team is looking at, directives that were underpinning the work on the comprehensive plan. And this includes affordability, sustainability, and equity. And specific to Ann Arbor, what's good to know is that this comprehensive plan and the city's current master plan is really a set of 8 different planning documents. And this new comprehensive plan effort will replace 5 of those. So the natural features plan, the land use plan, the downtown plan, the Ann Arbor sustainability framework, and the State Street corridor plan, and then incorporate and integrate recommendations from 3 existing plans that will remain active, which is the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, the Moving Together Towards Vision Zero Transportation Plan, and the Tree Line Urban Trail Plan. So why is a comprehensive plan important? At the end of the day, it really provides justifications for the decisions that we have to make as a community about how our community grows and changes. It will inform potential changes to our zoning code, which can impact where housing gets built, where new development can happen, what kind of uses are allowed where, and what the form of buildings and development patterns are. Ultimately, the comprehensive plan is also a way to help us balance different competing demands and competing needs for space, understand who's being served across the city, and to balance those needs. And it also informs how we can allocate and leverage our public resources, so our financial dollars and resources at the city, the kinds of projects and programs that are supported. So it's this kind of question of, what improvements, where do they go, when do they happen, and most importantly, why are we doing a particular set of improvements across the city? So where can we add housing? Where do we need to upgrade infrastructure? How do we best accommodate new jobs? These are some of the key questions that we'll work towards answering. Some other specifics from the comprehensive plan resolution that set this planning process in motion. The City of Ann Arbor has the A to Zero Living Carbon Neutrality Plan with a goal of working towards carbon neutrality by 2030. And so understanding how development and land use change relates to sustainability is critically important. It also provided a specific directive to look at how do we add density to single family zoned areas in the city and expand housing options in a way that worked within the context of those neighborhoods. Also to simplify and streamline our zoning districts. The city has over 40 different zoning categories, which is a lot, and it makes it very complicated for residents and potential developers and other partners to really understand and navigate. So how do we move towards something that's more flexible and adaptable to uses over time? To update our land uses to really emphasize the values over specified land use patterns. And there's also a critical importance of looking into the past at policies that and regulations that had resulted in exclusionary practices of people based on race or income or other characteristics, and finding ways that we can work to repair that past harm and create a more equitable city for all people that may want to live here, work here, or live or play here. So we wanted to share a few cartoons as a way of setting the stage. There's obviously lots of detail and specifics that we can get into in the planning process, but some of these quick cartoons exemplify some of the things that we're starting to hear from the community and have been hearing for a while. So one is this notion that most workers can't afford to live in the city and are forced to commute by cars. There's no other options. Um, so the first frame says, I've been renting in the city for a while, but I'm now paying more than 50% of my income towards rent. Help. The second one says, I can't afford this much longer. When I move, I'll need to find housing outside of Ann Arbor. This means I'll be driving to work, adding yet more cars to already clogged streets. A second vignette here just emphasizes that there's a mismatch between the type of housing and access to walkable amenities, and where people are able to find housing and kind of realize the value and the quality of life that's potentially available here in Ann Arbor. Um, so the first frame says, we moved to our first home and love it, but we have to drive everywhere to get to all of our essentials. Our friends who live downtown enjoy walking to stores, but there aren't many housing options that fit their needs. So it shows, for instance, lots of one bedroom or studio apartments, or 6 bedroom apartments that are oriented more towards students. So where are the opportunities for more family aged folks to find places to live? We wish there were more options so that people didn't have to choose between driving everywhere and housing that meets our needs. And the last one says, Ann Arbor is not affordable for a new generation of residents. So the first frame, I've lived here all my life. My kids went away to college and would like to move back to Ann Arbor, but with increasing housing prices, they can't afford to move into the city where they were raised. How will the next generation call Ann Arbor their home? So I think these are some real legitimate and real challenges and questions that are in front of us today as we think about the vision and the future of the city. So as far as the process goes, how is the plan developed? So for the comprehensive plan, there is a steering committee that has been put in place through a public process of asking people to submit their interest in participating on the steering committee. That steering committee was approved by Planning Commission, and Planning Commission is ultimately the author of the comprehensive plan document, which they will forward and recommend that City Council adopts and makes into the official comprehensive plan for the city of Ann Arbor. As far as the components that go into the plan itself, it'll be looking at housing, economic development, parks and recreation, transportation, land use, and zoning. And in terms of the project timeline, um, uh, what's important to know is that this project got kicked off over the summer, and the consultant team, working closely with city staff, across multiple departments has been conducting interviews, doing a lot of data collection, and just trying to understand the conditions, the context, the forces that are shaping where the city is today. And a lot of that information is what's being shared through these public workshops today, both the in-person workshops and made available online. Over the next 12 months, there'll be a number of other opportunities for public engagement and continuing on this public conversation as we work towards a final plan early in 2025 with a intended goal of having the new comprehensive plan adopted in the spring of 2025. So switching to the downtown area circulation study, which is the second of three projects being looked at through this series of workshops. So the circulation study is an opportunity to examine all of the transportation patterns for different modes of travel into, around, and through the downtown area. It's going to identify opportunities for improving both mobility and public space in the street realm and showing how these different systems can all work together to create a vibrant, economically rich downtown. And it helps identify projects that we can align with our values, and will ultimately can provide updates to the Moving Together Towards Vision Zero transportation plan for the city. The circulation study is broken up into four different topic areas, and as you'll see, these all intertwine and overlap with each other. But looking at active transportation and bicycle infrastructure, transit corridors, and the kinds of improvements to transit service that can be supported. We're looking at a menu of different event street ideas that can be used downtown to support vibrancy and activation, and also looking at two-way restoration opportunities for restoring one-way streets back into two-way operations. So what's ultimately informing this planning process is the city's Moving Together Towards Vision Zero transportation plan, the values from the Ann Arbor DDA in their work to the People Friendly Streets program, and also the A to Zero carbon neutrality plan. So when you look across all of these efforts that are inputting into the process, we see a number of key kind of desired outcomes, and there's others here, but this is a sampling of some of the key ones. So for example, Vision Zero by 2025, that we have no transportation fatalities or serious injuries as a result of our transportation infrastructure, so making streets safer and more accessible for all. A 50% reduction in vehicle miles traveled by 2030 to support carbon neutrality goals and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions related to transportation. Transit and bicycle systems that provide safe, easy options for all, and a vibrant public realm that supports a thriving local economy. And the circulation study is really building on some key recent successes over the past number of years to create more accessible connections to help support a mode shift towards other modes of transportation, walking, biking, riding the bus, towards improving the safety and comfort for all people and supporting placemaking and vibrancy. So we're seeing projects like the First Street Bikeway and the William Street Bikeway really helping to extend connections into and around the downtown and into nearby neighborhoods. Projects like the State Street Curbless Street that allow for more flexible use of a limited right-of-way to support both businesses and the pedestrian environment. Creating pocket parks or other plaza spaces as part of these projects, like we see at First and Liberty or in the Carytown area, to just make streets really serve more flexible uses to provide value to downtown residents, to the city as a whole, and to businesses. But one of the challenges as we look at all of these and look at what opportunities are in front of us looking ahead as we work towards our goals is that there continues to be limited public right-of-way space. So streets aren't getting any wider. The public right-of-way from property line to property line generally does not get any wider over time. And there are increasing demands for use of that space, whether it's for vehicles or buses, bikes, curbside activity, cafe dining, outdoor retailing, all of those kinds of things are competing for space. So the circulation study is really an opportunity to look at all of the different desired modes and uses of travel into and through the downtown, figure out where these uses can overlap and work together, and where they may need to be separated based on available space and parallel systems put in place to balance uses accordingly. So the first topic is around active transportation, and it's really looking at the bicycle infrastructure in the city. The city and the DDA have recently completed a downtown loop for separated bikeways. That's on First Street, Catherine, Division, Miller, and William Street, with some connections that come outside of that. And the circulation study will really be looking at, any gaps between that loop and connecting to some other bicycle infrastructure. We're looking at opportunities to extend what we call all ages and abilities connections outside of the downtown. So what are some of the key streets that we can use to better link neighborhoods into the downtown bicycle loop? And then one of the challenges that need to grapple with through the circulation study is balancing access and coverage. Not every street needs to have a separated facility, but what's the right balance between having those separated facilities that are close by so that people are comfortable accessing the places that they want to go? Ultimately, through this process, we're looking at 5 different bikeway projects that are well aligned with our values, and we'll be looking for public feedback and input on those ideas. The second topic area is transit corridors. So it's important to know that both the RIDE and the University of Michigan, that operates its own transit system, have recent plans calling for more frequent, robust transit service that happens more frequently and is better able to meet residents' demand to get into and out of the downtown more easily. So this circulation study will look at the key transit corridors or key corridors that can support transit in a better way, and what are the specific kinds of infrastructure improvements that are needed to make transit operate better on these key corridors to serve the overall system. So that'll be looking at things like transit signals, transit lanes, improved stops, alignment between transit and bicycle infrastructure, and where those improvements need to happen. The third category is event streets. And so, stepping back for a moment, the pandemic really changed in many ways how we're using streets in the downtown. That still informs how we're managing and using streets today. So, for example, whether it's the block of Washington Street that's closed um, to vehicle traffic for much of the year and kind of functioning as a seasonal street, or the weekend closures along Main Street to support, expanded uses for cafe dining and that outdoor pedestrian activity. Those uses were prompted by the pandemic, but have continued on. And so we'll be looking at how these opportunities and others are really formalized moving forward, and understanding if there are infrastructure investments that can be made to support event streets. And that could range anywhere from flexible streets to additional curbless streets, looking at opportunities for seasonal or shared streets, or potentially even pedestrian malls. And so this circulation study is an opportunity to assess the feasibility and where these different treatments may occur and where they can align with community value. And the last and fourth component that we're looking at are two-way restoration projects. So we know from the research and best practice, and have seen locally with the First and Ashley Street two-way restoration, that two-way streets are generally calmer and safer for all people. They support better wayfinding and access to businesses and destinations. It's a more understandable street network for the many visitors that Ann Arbor gets. And it also just creates a better pedestrian environment and supports the vibrancy and activity that we like to see in our downtown. So we'll be looking at Fifth and Division as well as Beeks to understand, whether two-way restoration on these streets is feasible, understand the alignment with our community values, and what some of the opportunities may be with restoring these streets back into two-way operations. So we'll be exploring and looking at recommendations and options for two-way street restoration as part of this work. In terms of the process and the timeline for the circulation study, our first workshop is here kind of at the end of our discovery phase, where we've done a lot of data collection and a lot of analysis, generated a number of starter ideas that we're going to be moving forward with, along with your feedback. Over the next few months, we'll be refining those ideas and concepts into a set of final recommendations. We anticipate another round of workshops in June to share those recommendations and collect additional feedback, with the intent being that final recommendations would be available later in the summer in August of 24. These recommendations would ultimately be approved by both the DDA board and the Planning Commission and can be incorporated into any of the CIP or capital improvement plans at both the DDA and at the city, in order to see which projects need to be implemented and understand the timing and funding needs for those improvements. The last project that we're looking at is the DDA development and TIF plan. So first things first, just to clear some information, is understanding what is a DDA, or a Downtown Development Authority. The DDA is a component of the Ann Arbor city government, and it's defined to operate within their downtown boundary. And their charge is really to build infrastructure and manage programs that both prevent the deterioration of downtown and support its vitality and growth over time. So what is the development and TIF plan? There's really two separate plans, and these are more technical documents, but the development plan establishes the DDA boundary, talks about the kinds of activities and projects that the DDA will participate in realizing or managing, whether that's built work or other programs that operate within the downtown area. The companion to the development plan is the tax increment financing, or TIF plan, which really establishes all of the procedures and requirements for how the DDA collects their tax revenue in order to carry out the tasks that are listed in their development plan. So what will be informing this component of the work, and why is it being done right now? Both the comprehensive plan and the downtown area circulation study are really a key opportunity to identify the kinds of projects and the kinds of programs that the DDA may want to participate in moving into the future. So both of these planning processes, the recommendations, the ideas that come out of it, those will be fed into the development plan and TIF plan for the DDA to help identify the kinds of activities that those plans will include and what the DDA will be working towards moving forward. There's just a map graphic showing the extent of the DDA district. And just a note that the current DDA plan dates back to 2003. And so the updated plan will be an opportunity to reflect city goals and values, ensure transparency and stewardship, and alignment with state statute and some legal requirements that have expanded in recent years, and also to address just some of the emerging needs in the downtown area. This plan will be drafted alongside the circulation study and the comprehensive plan and tightly aligned with those. And it's anticipated that the final plan would be adopted and approved kind of in concert or shortly thereafter with the comprehensive plan in spring or early summer 2025. With that, let's get started. We want to thank you for listening to this presentation, and we want you to know that if you aren't able to attend one of the in-person workshop sessions during March 12th through the 14th, all of the information that was presented in those workshops will be available online. You can either follow the QR code or type in the web address that's on the screen, which is bit.ly/downtowna2, to be able to access those materials and participate in the same engagement activities as were conducted in the in-person workshop. So if you follow that link, you'll get instructions for how to open and access a mural board that contains a lot of the informational boards that were shared, as well as being able to work through the various feedback activities that were made available. And then there is a brief questionnaire and survey that you can link to at the end of the mural board to leave some additional information for the project team. So with that, we thank you again for your time. And we would love to hear from you throughout this process. And just a reminder that this is the first of many opportunities to be engaged and share your voice through these different planning processes. Thank you.